Welcome to TiffDoesLoans Podcast. So today I have Adrian Ayub. He is real estate investor, entrepreneur, and a political candidate. So thank you so much for coming in. How are you?
Thank you so much, Tiffany. I just want to start off by saying my thoughts and prayers to the people of Los Angeles that have been affected by the ongoing fires.
It's been devastating.
And I really respect that you're taking time to contribute in the ways that you are. And I would like to see how I can get involved to help people afflicted by it.
Yeah.
Losing one's home, I just couldn't imagine.
It has been, I have been volunteering. So we've been making care packages. And it really just, it's when everybody comes together. Like I talked to, there was hundreds of us there yesterday, from all different parts, and everybody just running it, and, everybody's just so polite and just like, hey, where do you need hands? Just everybody there to help. So I think it really just kind of re-energizes that like spark of, all the kindness that is out there. And I think we get blocked by all the other stuff going on sometimes. But yeah, it definitely was nice yesterday being around just everybody looking to help. So I will also leave that information below if anybody else wanted to join, but absolutely we'd love to have you there.
Thank you.
And let's get started into, why don't you tell us just kind of how you got into real estate and politics. So, and in your area, so you are in Cerritos. So why don't you just kind of tell us how you got started? And I know you have big plans, kind of combining those two. So.
Well, thanks, Tiffany. Well, yeah, I'm a 27-year-old guy, born and raised in Cerritos my whole life. Yeah. Although I've, traveled the world and the country. My parents, they met in high school in Cerritos. My dad grew up in Artesia, which is adjacent to Cerritos. And it wasn't easy in the 90s. My dad grew up in what we in the Latino community called a barrio, which is essentially not exactly a ghetto, but it was a rough upbringing. My dad, Cholo neighbors, a lot of gang activity in Artesia in the 90s. So he was always at my mom's house in Cerritos, just to kind of escape that. My father went and became an entrepreneur first in delivering water. He had a water delivery business, and he always was around people with nice houses in areas, and he would just ask them, how did they do it? That's a question people on the come up ask, and they said, real estate. So my father started going to Kiyosaki and Trump seminars in the 90s.
Wow. And
that's when he learned. He got licensed the year I was born in 97 from Cerritos College, which I went to as well. And so I saw growing up with my mom's side of the family. And then I would see my father every time he would come to pick me up. At one point during the 2000s boom, he would always come with a new car and take me to a new house. And this was almost a shock to my mother's side of the family because they knew where he grew up in. Yeah. And they thought that he was going to just stay in that area, in that path, in that socioeconomic class. But they just kept seeing him on the come up. And every time I would go, my father went from the barrio to houses on the hill, mostly in Inland Empire. And always moving, condos, townhouses. So I saw my father growing up just succeed, and then eventually I did find out he was in real estate. He had a license, but he was predominantly flipping. And back then, wholesaling was just known as flipping. So it wasn't until recent, maybe in the 2010s, that they did a differentiate. Yep. It's just essentially flipping contracts. So I saw so when I came to a certain age, I was always more like my mother. She had me involved in music and film and
so more like arts.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it left-brained or right-brained?
I think they're two different. Yeah.
Yeah. So my father was just always the entrepreneur and business type. and then my mom more the creative type. Yeah.
That's nice. You got both, though.
Yeah. But when I got to a certain age, I knew I wanted to work for myself. Going through high school, sometimes I did struggle with authority, and I feel there's always abuses of it in the school district I was at. So I knew I wanted to work for myself. And so when I was a late teenager, my father actually, he wanted to, so he dropped me off at an office that was a satellite of WFG, World Financial Group. And it was with some of his former associates, licensees, mortgage brokers, contractors, were there. And so that was my first foray, I guess, into sales and network marketing. It was in Cerritos. And I learned a lot there. Just as a recruiter, I learned my dad's friend, Freddie, he said, whatever you do, whatever industry, always be building your team. Whatever you do. And we know that you have to work as a unit. And a type of downline or pyramids work. We've heard of pyramid schemes. But everything to incentivize people, to recruit people, to train, to make it worth your while as a professional, it has to be multi-level. And so, but also at the time, I was taking classes. I had passed classes online in 2018. And I was a trainee at Keller Williams Pacific Estates Cerritos.
Okay.
And I found out there, too, a guy brought me in, and I found out that it was multi-level as well.
Okay.
Around that time was when I started going to many different real estate investing associations, meetups, you say. So my mind, on one hand, I was in kind of corporate offices, as a recruiter, and then as an agent trainee. And then on the other hand, I was venturing into the Southern California real estate investment scene. And it kind of, sometimes it would conflict.
Yeah.
Because we know how corporate is, and I think many individuals get into real estate to try to escape the corporate that race and to be able to work for themselves. So I found out just about wholesaling through different RIAs I was going to. And it kind of, it was at odds with those at the office I was a trainee at.
Okay.
So at one point, the guy, he was rude to me in front of a lot of people just because I'm a young person, ambitious. And I left there and I never turned back. And I started in the neighborhoods, adjacent cities. The wholesaling business doesn't typically work well in areas like Cerritos because everyone's properties are very well maintained.
Yeah.
And there's strict enforcement. Wholesaling typically works in neighborhoods that have some distressed properties because you can visually, young people when they're starting out, they don't, you don't have the resources to do all the marketing and spend for the pay-per-click, the flyers. So it is recommended when people are getting started in wholesaling or real estate investing to just drive for dollars. Go through the neighborhoods and just look for the houses, the rough, preferably the rough in the diamond. You don't want to go into war zones where every house is distressed. But I believe, looking for the rough in the diamond. And so I started, and I did my first couple deals in Norwalk and Whittier. And some of these were very distressed, not only financially, but physically. One house in Norwalk, a woman was they had responded back to my bandit signs that I put among the freeways. I had them printed, so it was a small sign, it wasn't a big, but it was printed professionally. And a woman's caregiver called the sign.
Nice.
And so I went to the house and I found the woman. She was on she was on a ventilator in her own house.
Yeah.
And then we found out later that her caregiver was allowing squatters in the house, and there was drugs involved, and the backyard looked like hoarders.
Okay.
So I worked patiently, but I found a buyer and a guy who would become a mentor, and he gave me the right contracts to use because he was a broker, a lender. So he wanted to protect on his end. So that first deal he structured was actually a subject to assignment. And I've kept that contract with me. In this, the paperwork is so important. Yeah. The disclosures for both buyers, sellers. So I got, Southern California is a very competitive market. So I started to look elsewhere. And I was actually on an app looking for properties to wholesale when I discovered someone had posted there was a glitch in the system and they posted a house very cheap. It was like for $5,000 in Ohio, but it showed up in a local.
Yeah.
So I did that deal. I just posted it again in Facebook groups. Early on in my career, I was that's how you do it. You post on Craigslist, you post online, Facebook.
Yeah.
And so I started doing virtual wholesaling.
Okay.
Which I felt was really good because when you go into some of these neighborhoods in SoCal, it's not really safe. You could be writing down the address of a property, and someone knocks on your window and is like, "What's up?" So I found that virtual wholesaling just fit well with my personality. As a Gen Z person, someone who's technical, and I just liked how you could do in multiple states at once.
Yeah.
So I went from Ohio, Indiana, and then Tennessee, later Michigan. And then I got into rental properties. I held one. Get in to lease options, good. Done Section 8, short-term rentals.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that's just kind of my journey in the wholesaling and then transitioning into investment.
Nice. And it seems like you've been just really like diving into it, but also I like that you've been kind of assertive, like which ones work the best for you so you can continue to keep growing and building. Do you have a team right now? Like, do you help other wholesalers like do the virtual?
Yes. Well, I started Ayub Consulting 3 years ago. And I've just been glad that people have made millions using my methods. In marketing online.
Yep.
Data is important. Data is the new oil in this industry.
Yep.
For many industries. So I'm glad I've helped guys who are brokers, but they wanted to get started into virtual wholesaling. But I also, at one point, I started teaching my spin on creative finance.
Okay.
And also on creative acquisitions, properties with liens on them, and how to get the liens cleared off. So you have a free and clear property. How do you, I think that rent to own or lease options are the best hybrid strategy, because some people just want to hold on to properties forever, not recapitalize or get, big checks. Some people just want, to flip or to get commissions. I think rent to own, which I've taught people, and is the best middle ground, because you get on the front end per month and then also on the back end. And then if the tenant buyer doesn't honor their contract agreement, then you can, the option is terminated and you can either sell the property or re-rent it.
Okay. So there is, and these, do you only do here, or is that also that you can do in other states?
You can do these strategies in all states, and that's the beauty of wholesaling real estate, or even creative finance. You can do in every state, even though I am a licensed realtor in the state of California.
Okay, nice. So that's just, again, like filling your tool belt, and you're helping others along the way. So I'm always trying to encourage that. And like, also if you could teach and train, and even virtually, making videos and getting other investors to excel with you is amazing. And do you help? You're also, we mentioned it earlier that you are a political candidate. So how did you kind of shift? Like, what was that inspiration, or what was the shift from real estate into politics?
Okay, well, growing up, I was always into activism, I would say first. I just coming from a mixed background, understanding the issues of my great-grandparents' countries, grandparents' countries. So I was in MUN in high school, debate clubs, this. But just as, like I said, growing up in Cerritos, I think sometimes people, they go into political candidacy because they come from an old lineage in that. But I think also some people you see issues in your hometown, right? And you feel like you can try your best as a concerned resident. You can get involved, but sometimes the only way to enact the change to keep things good or to make things, change things better is through political action. And I just believe we see a lot of what's going on in California, which has made a lot of investors choose other states to invest in.
Yes.
It's because of the policy.
Yeah. No, 100%.
And so
most of them are.
Yeah. And many people even.
Landlord. We are tenant friendly and other, not to get political, but most red states are landlord friendly. So yeah.
And I would right there, I would comment that it's not only if the state is tenant friendly, it comes down to the judge in the eviction court hall.
Okay.
Is he tenant or landlord friendly? Because like I said, I've done a lot of renting properties.
You're saying take that extra step to do a little research.
Into the county as well. Yeah. It's at all the RIA meetings, they talk about which states are landlord or tenant friendly.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to that county and also the judges in that county.
Okay, so that's super useful. So you definitely want to make sure that you're doing your homework on more like county to county.
Very local. Yeah, having localized knowledge, even when you're doing long distance investing, is very important. And you have to go out to the market. And I've spent a lot of time in the Midwest, right, in Indiana and Ohio. I've had houses out there to stay, a lot of friends.
Do you still invest in Ohio? That's a really big one right now.
Yeah, I've gotten through your efforts. Sometimes I've gotten family members investing out there. Some of my dad's former associates out there who were guys that were very localized and old school, and that they believe that if you can't physically touch it, 20-minute drive, that you shouldn't invest in it.
Okay.
But the policies and prices in Southern California is what has opened up the minds of people to consider investing in other states.
100%, yeah. And it's just also, opening up the minds, but also you have to, if something's not making sense, it's like, what are the options? You either don't do it or you figure out a workaround. So most are, they're keeping what they have out here for appreciation. Or if you still have a good deal, but you're not quite cash flowing, but you have that money to burn a little bit, then you might still do it and get the appreciation, but then you're going in other states for the cash flow. So I know a lot that are doing that, or they're flipping out here because the prices are higher, and then they're holding. Yeah. They're fixing and holding in the smaller states, or not smaller, but like Ohio, or more affordable states, not smaller. So.
I found though that social housing is a good alternative for investors to. Social
housing, would that be like
assisted living?
Okay.
Veterans housing. It's a good alternative to multifamily investing.
Yeah.
I've given speeches. I've spoken at multifamily masters. It used to be they're rebranded. At a golf course in Long Beach, I spoke, and there was a big movement of syndicators and multifamily people.
Yep.
And they were encouraging, would-be investors to not purchase properties themselves. Single families or duplexes, triplexes, but instead to invest in their syndication. And even my ex-business partner, who was also a private money partner, he started investing in syndications himself of people that I connected him to. So I got to see how syndicators operate and but I was at a is it Aspire conference in LA at the convention center?
Yep.
And I met two syndicators there that I had known for years. And one of them said to each other, "Oh, yeah, it's hard to find the deals now." And then the other said, "Oh, yeah, it's hard to finance them." So I saw that multifamily is not all that it's cut out to be. It's not about how many units that you own. It's about your net operating income.
Yep. And with those two, what is a little more difficult, I also go to that group that you're talking about.
Oh, you followed all the groups that I used to go to. Now you're all in. I'm already on to political candidacy.
So they I am close with them too. They did kind of hand it over a little bit, but they're still a part of it. But the issue with like multi-investing, it's great, and I also connect investors with certain, like, I'm on projects, so like big projects, but also for multi-investing, like, syndications are great, but you need to make sure it's a little harder because it's trust. It's like you have to, it's not just like, hey, if you go get a property and you got to manage it, and it's more control onto you, or like that you have more control over it. But if you maybe get in the wrong deal
with the wrong people,
with the wrong people, and you throw 100,000, 200,000 in, and now these people aren't communicating, they're not calling you back, you're not getting your returns, you don't know what's going on. So I think that one is something, if you want to get in multi-investing, I do recommend more. Go to the meetups, obviously read the books, but go to the meetups, meet with the people, look at their deals, learn
do background checks on people, see if they, like, there's an individual who runs a RIA and he's been to jail.
Oh, wow, okay.
And he's actually gotten his attorney's license suspended. So you can't get a realtor license with a criminal background, but you can run a RIA.
Okay. But you can't, when it comes to, but even the underwriters of like the multifamily deals, maybe some of them have their DRE, but like you don't have to. So, I mean, for them, mainly, I would that's usually what I recommend, because I'm doing the same thing. I go to a lot of them. I have met a lot of people at this point, so I do know like the next deal that like who I'm going to trust my money with and work on their deals. But I think that might be one of the harder things with investing, like with the multi.
Well, the whole real estate industry is a very relationship based business. It's a very intimate industry. Even as a realtor now, in Cerritos, the average house price is $1,060,000. Yep. So, and now the interest rates are high. As you know, as mortgage. So it's it's an intimate arrangement, and so people really need to know, like, and trust you to entrust you with selling their most prized possession
to get the best.
And now real estate, it's not just a utility, it's not just for shelter, it's an investment. And it's a luxury.
And I feel like that, and that's what I love, my realtor partners that pitch it as an investment. So they start training their brains like it's not just a home, like this is an investment. You know, in a couple of years we're going to come back, we're going to tap into it, and then we're going to, use it to create you more income and make it work for you eventually. So I think that I love how you guide your clients, because I think that that's the ticket for people when they're getting into real estate, to have that mindset, or somebody that's going to give them that mindset, kind of create that, lay that platform. When it comes to your political, your candidacy, political candidacy in Cerritos, how do you plan on kind of combining the two, like your two passions?
Okay.
Like, what do you plan on kind of doing differently in Cerritos?
Well, I wanted to comment on your last point of it being an investment. And you have to really educate your clients. Whether they're going to reside in it, whether they're just investing it passively or actively. And so real estate compared to stocks, in stock market, we've all seen the movies like Wall Street, Boiler Room. In the stock market, inside information or insider trading is illegal. But in the real estate industry, it's not only legal, but it's a prerequisite to get clients or someone who wants to live in the property to fork over so much of their hard-earned money. They need to know what's the city's plan, what's the future outlook. And in the past, everyone said location, location, location. But now on my path as a candidate and realtor in my hometown, I say more importantly, schools, schools, schools. The schools determine the reason why the values in Cerritos have been kept so high. It's not even a coastal town like HB or Seal Beach, is because of the school district.
Yeah. And they have a respected like college over there, is like all the elementary, all of that still like from the whole way up, that they're just, it just keeps enhancing like over the years.
Yeah. So as far as you said mixing, I firmly believe that just as Trump's relatives have said, they want to put a wall in between the organization and the office of the presidency.
Okay.
I believe on a local level, you have to separate the two. And I think it's good. I think that a lot of Americans are frustrated with politicians who mix things and there's collusion, right? And cronyism. So I do believe in separating the two. Like, for instance, in real estate investment, I have been a Section 8 provider and a short-term rental provider. But I know within my city that neither of them are allowed, and I would keep it because it would perhaps diminish the quality of life for the residents. So that's why, as a public figure, or if I get elected as a public official, you have to separate it. So from a business perspective, entrepreneur perspective, if Section 8 or short-term rentals were allowed, it would be good for my business. But as someone who just wants to serve the people of my community, I know that it's not allowed, and they just wouldn't want it. So that's what's important to separate the two, not your own interests, but what's best for those that you would want to represent.
Well, in Cerritos, you can't, like rentals, and what was he, Section 8? Yeah,
you cannot do Airbnb, essentially, in Cerritos. Okay. I've done it before, and sometimes people
like
have come by.
Short-term rentals. Okay.
Yes, short-term rentals.
I think a lot of them are kind of, there's a lot more rules in a lot more cities.
And that's why Airbnb is not the best investment strategy, because the city can pass ordinances, pass resolutions.
So you might be like booming in business.
Yeah.
And then one day it's just like, hey, everything's changed.
Look,
but I guess that's a risk. That's a risk in anything. I mean, look at how much California has changed for investors, and, again, it's like it is a part of the risk. So even if something changes, if somebody's crushing their Airbnb for a couple of years, it's still a lot more money than they would have made before. But
I learned long ago that real estate is the one industry that has the intersection of the public and the private sector more than any other industry. And if you are a real estate entrepreneur, you need to have relations with the city. You need to have, you need to know people in the planning department, in the zoning, right? I think that and permits are not cheap in LA. I have many friends, they show $23,000 to pull a preliminary permit. So as far as and there's been many wholesalers, they'll try to sometimes sell a property saying, if you Airbnb it, you can get this much. But you can never underwrite based on short-term rental. The conservative investors that I know, the investors that have been in for a long time, you always have to underwrite for worst-case scenario. You have to also, in underwriting, you have to learn CapEx, capital expenditure. It's not just all profit. You have to account for. You could be getting $200 in cash flow per month for the year, but one furnace that you need to replace, kills your flow. And that's why it's not always the best idea to invest in old properties. I've known this in many people, because the capital expenditure can sometimes be high. You might as well get newer properties, less 100%. CapEx, less headaches, right?
There's some out there that are like starting to build and flip type things. So I mean, that's,
Build and
that's
hold,
more,
too.
yeah, that's more like to me, that's kind of like a newer strategy. I've been seeing a lot more since last year. So, but again, I think that's something that's super strategic. So if you wanted to do something like that, I think anything in real estate, once you hone in, I would get familiar with a lot of them, which I've kind of done, but also then it's like hone in, find someone who's made a ton of mistakes and have them mentor you is what I'm getting from like most investors. Like just try to, if they can iron it out just a little bit, but really there's going to be, each property is going to be different. Each, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, we're experiencing it right now. Like, well, even I'm sure some what's happening in LA right now, I'm sure some of those were rentals, I'm not, and that's why you never know.
And to touch on the point you made before, I think you have to stay educated on policy changes and how it impacts. I mean, many of the younger people, if we're just entrepreneurs and we watch stuff on social media for inspiration. No, you need to know that politics matter. Politics just means power, and they have the power to shut down your business. During COVID era, I was running a firm in my hometown on Studebaker, and I was having a meetup out of the offices there. Yeah, and it was shut down.
Yeah,
and also it impacted even potential hirees would be coming in masks.
Yeah.
And I have a company for fund recovery and surplus funds that I got into through a friend of my ex-business partner. So it's essentially surplus funds, state funds, recovering funds for claimants, right? Either from foreclosure or probate. And not only of course the foreclosures were stopped, that's good for people. But there were skeleton crews at the unclaimed funds division of the state, so it impacted that business as well. So basically,
their decisions, yes, they definitely impact us.
It's very important to stay aware of all the changes, and even as a realtor, there's been more changes in the industry recently.
Oh my gosh, the past couple of years, like it just keeps, it keeps changing, and I think that's the most important, like the brokerages that are still standing and the loan officers and the realtors in this market, the investors, just everybody that had made it through this, decided to stick it out and make it through this market. We have had to educate ourselves, in very many different avenues. It's like, no, like you have the time, pull it up. Like, how can you benefit? How can you still make money in this? Like, how can we still keep a business going in such a tricky market? And I feel like people definitely had to go in their tool belts these past couple of years because of politics and
interest rates.
And interest rates
as well.
Yeah.
That's affected realtors, mortgage brokers, syndicators, as I alluded to earlier. I believe...
well, yeah, because even the big commercial ones, I mean, that was when a couple of years ago, because those deals are a lot different. Those are like 3 years. So that those loans are in. Maybe you could get 10 if you're super experienced, but most of those big, like those deals that they have the syndications for, they're like 3 to 5 years. So a couple of years ago when the rates were all low, that's what we're coming into right now. It started last year probably, but this year, is that a lot of those syndications are in lower loan or lower rates, and now they're maturing, and now they have to call their investors and either get more money or they're not going to be able to get a new loan on it and go into distress. So that has been one of the fears of some of those bigger ones in these past 2 years.
And I find it very interesting that a lot of these multi-family guys, it's more of a do as I say, not as I did.
Mm-hmm.
They all started, they cut their teeth. You learn so much from being an active investor.
Yes.
Getting title to the property, learning to fill out the paperwork, looking for deals, right?
Yep.
And then a lot of wholesalers, if they implement the right systems and processes, they could become good multifamily investors. But I feel like and typically the syndicators, they market to white collar professionals, sophisticated or accredited investors, of course, who maybe don't have the time, or maybe they just don't feel brave enough to do it on their own. When they started in single family, then they moved to 2, 4. Even Grant Cardone started in single family. Investing, and he learned it, but he tells people just go into multifamily.
Just go into, that's what I want.
And a good alternative, I was at ITI. It was previously Phoebe Pasadena.
Okay.
I have a great mentor from Christina Suter, shout out. There's an individual, Seth, and he does pad split.
Okay.
Pad split. It's a.
I've heard a lot of.
It's only allowed out of state. Yeah.
Yeah. I hear that in Florida.
Yeah.
Florida. Pad split, right? Yeah.
So pad split is a way for investors to, in C and D areas, make more than traditional rental.
Yeah. Like
so it's more affordable,
rooms, right?
Yeah, per room, affordable housing. He switched his strategy from multifamily investing to purely single family, and in C and D areas.
So then he can make them all into like pad splits.
Yeah, it's just not allowed in Southern California yet.
Yeah. The other investor that had a bunch of these going on, or they turned them, I guess it was a single family, but they turned it into like 10 rooms. It was Florida. So I know for sure Florida does it. That's probably going to be more of a hype, more that now that more and more people are talking about it. But Florida is probably going to remain a pretty big one for the pad splits.
In Cerritos, assisted living is widespread. At least in every neighborhood that I'm in, there's a house designated for assisted living and some non-medical, medical.
Yeah.
Nurses coming in and out. So I know that's a great investment strategy in Cerritos.
Yep.
Because you have an aging population. I'm the one, I've been fighting to host veterans in houses in Cerritos. Whether we acquire the houses and rent directly or through veterans housing organizations.
Yep.
But I found that the red tape, the bureaucracy, and the middlemen who don't really do the service they say they're going to do get in the way. So I rebranded my company's mission statement to focus first on veterans housing in Cerritos and adjacent Artesia. So
when you get in there, like become in council?
No. This is separate. This is separate just for as an investor. I have I have a nonprofit that I'm working on.
Okay, awesome.
I just feel like whatever methods you have, whether it's public sector, private, we have to come together because veterans are homeless on the streets.
Yes.
And we wouldn't have this country if it wasn't for them. Yeah.
I'm working on being more of a resource for them right now too.
I just say whatever we have to do, we need to house veterans.
To get them 100%. Doesn't matter. I agree. And I'm hoping that the more that we step forward with all the new changes that are coming, I'm hoping that will that will be something that is more put on a pedestal, which sounds like it might be. So we will see. I'm
looking forward to the next 4 years. Yeah,
I know, me too. And let's go into, so this has been a challenging market. The last couple of years, you've been in all different types. You've done, realtor, but wholesaling, a little bit of everything, different states. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced? And basically, realtor, investor, politician, maybe in the last...
Well, candidate, yeah. I'd say it's just always the people. So, just knowing how to read people. Yep. If we've ran offices, if we've been in offices, we always know that there's people who can sometimes try to sabotage your business.
Okay, yep.
Or try to stab you in the back. It just comes... Even individuals who have never been in the real estate industry will sometimes comment and say, oh, real estate, that's a cutthroat business. And it's true. And not everyone is abundance minded. Some people are very scarcity minded.
Okay, more like chasing the money. Because there is a lot of money in this industry. And you can either chase the money, or you could also, money is a big deal, but you're still going to put integrity over money. And some people do not choose that. They'll choose the money over.
Yeah,
So
short-term thinking and burn bridges.
Yeah.
But running a firm, I was running, and I had all these acquisition agents, right, unlicensed, and they're calling and they're handling lead generation, conversion. Some of them, I felt like they, sometimes they'll try to either self-sabotage or try to sabotage your operations if they're not content with themselves or happy. So being a manager, like Steve Jobs said, if you're a great entrepreneur, you have to become a great manager, even if you don't want to be.
Yeah.
But being a great manager is being able to really develop your workers, whether employees or independent contractors. So I'm just very glad that everyone that worked under me, they advanced in their professional skills. I'm just very proud that I took people from no experience sometimes in real estate or sales and got them their first check that averaged, $2,500 to $4,500. So that's the thing I'm most proud about is putting people on.
Yep.
And just being a good boss in the time that I had my own firm, in my city. Times happen, I went back to college. We all have ups and downs throughout, especially, in one's 20s, if we look at a lot of successful people. So I went back to college. I did get licensed. I'm on my way to getting my degree in real estate so I can test for my brokers. And I found, and I'm sure everyone who's been both a realtor and wholesaler will agree to this. Sometimes it's hard transitioning to being an agent in an office affiliated with a brokerage. When you were entirely your own boss, running your own firm, right? So I feel sometimes it's not always conducive, and I've been affiliated now with 5 different brokerages.
Okay.
Because there's territorial disputes, there's office politics. I mean, I believe politics exists in every aspect of human society, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be that way. And sometimes people, if they do see you as a threat, they can gossip about you, and they can try to get you out of there. To get you out of there. Like everyone who's been in this industry has stories. Yes. Yeah. Toxic environment.
Yeah. And that's so true. I want to circle back on when you're talking about management, and I've listened to a lot of leadership audiobooks and all that good stuff, but also I'm sure everybody has what I always like to think too, everyone's had that manager that sucked, like you just felt terrible around them. You dreaded the fact, gosh,
like a principal at a school.
Yeah, I don't want to see this person's face. It's literal anxiety in you. You're like, gosh, driving there, you're like, I just know that they're going to put me down, not give me credit. I know that they are just gonna ruin everything. The moment you're all singing in your car, you're happy to get there. And then the moment, their energy. So it's literally, or even if there's an employee, like you said, if there's a negative employee, and they have done a ton of studies on this, it is a real thing.
Can infect the other.
Yes,
it affects the culture.
Everything.
Yes.
Culture is everything. If you want success, you're only as successful as your systems. But I think ultimately, yes, everything starts with the culture and that leader. Who is leading?
Yeah.
Do they respect
you have to show strength
everybody?
Too, but kindness, I believe fairness, but strength. You have to show strength as a leader.
You have to show as a leader. But I also everybody could probably think also, when you think of that manager that was the worst, there has probably also been that manager was the best. And I had a great manager when I started this this industry. And I mean, I always think back, I have thanked him so much. Like, he showed me how to be, I had switched to industries. So I would call him panicking, and he's like, what's going on? Like, these are out of your control. Like, he helped me, even the things that he didn't need to help me on, like, as a person. Like, he's like, look, if these things are out of your control, you can't, time is money. And he would but instead of just fueling the fire, like, I felt like he helped make me a better human. And just like, look at me now, if I was only had that manager that was disliked, it's like, it probably would have taken me a lot longer to get to where I was. So yeah, I think leadership is the most important with culture. So that's especially now.
I'm running for city council of Cerritos, and most importantly, I just want to give hope to the younger generation of males and females to be all that they can be, to be able to achieve the American dream, which involves homeownership,
which is shifting now.
Yes. It has shifted, and it's definitely,
it's a little scary.
I like to tell,
I think our American dream might be a little. The American dream before was to have a house. You have a family.
I think the younger generation I call them young boomers. At least the high schoolers at Cerritos High School. I've been in there.
Yeah.
I call them young boomers, and I think it's come full circle.
So
because
now
they've seen the Gen Z and the millennials. They want to go back to the old time values.
That's true. I really like that point. I'm definitely, I don't know though. I'm not sensing a big, because when it comes to the boomers, I mean, I don't know. They did a lot of work though too.
Yeah, they did. But it's like playing a video game on normal or easy difficulty compared to playing a video game on hard or expert. And I think Gen Z definitely, millennials hard, my Gen Z expert, and I like I said, and I can only speak locally. You may be thinking of Southern California as a whole.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in Cerritos, at Cerritos High School, I sense that I call them young boomers.
Yeah.
Because they want the opportunity. If young men can't rent their own place, then how can they get a girlfriend?
Yeah.
They can't get, how can they?
No, it's
so I'm thinking of just the entire lifespan of what made the American dream. And I feel you can talk technically, you've always seen people, right? You can try to give them advice technically or financially.
Yep.
But if they don't have any motivation, if they don't have their mindset right, it's all for naught.
No, 100%.
So that's why
it's action plan too. It's really about just like, and I found this out a couple of years ago, but when I started my journey, ultimately it was me committing to myself, like to make the certain changes and really making the action plan. And like I started making contracts to myself in 2022.
Using ChatGPT?
No. I did them by hand.
I love that.
I'm old school. I am a millennial.
Okay.
And I'm right in the middle.
Oh, wow. We couldn't tell.
I'm real. I'm like a hard millennial,
A hard millennial.
Yes, a hard millennial. Somewhere on the end, like I think it's like 96, 97. So I think my sister
I'm the start of the Gen Z then, 97.
Yes. Yeah, you would be like the beginning.
That's why I consider myself a Gen Z leader.
Yeah. I don't, honestly, I don't follow it too much. I do have a nephew that confuses me on, but other than that, I don't really know too much on it. I think we've all struggled in different, generations in different ways. I think Gen Z, the millennials, we didn't have our whole life. Like you guys growing up and the other generations, I mean, it's got to be hard. Like you guys are now like growing up, you guys have, like say a kid's being bullied, like back in the day, if you get bullied, you go home and at least that bully is gone. It's gone for that night. But at this point, it's like, it's not. These kids aren't getting a break.
Yeah,
You know, they're
cyberbullying,
not
yeah.
they're not getting a break from anything.
I saw
They're-
stats.
it's always right there. So I mean, it's all different struggles, you know, like in different generations. But that's got to be tough. They're watching the highlight reels of everybody thinking that, you know, it's like we deal with it too, but they're seeing it like coming up. So I feel like, hey, we all had our battles. We're all in the same. I feel like at this point everyone's working together. So
in real estate, I was always the youngest person in the room.
Yeah.
When I was 21 in every room, everyone's, you know,
Even
twice my
now.
age, triple. Yes. And
Even now you're pretty
I'm the
young.
youngest candidate
Okay.
in my upcoming election. So I feel like I've always been and sometimes people believe that you have to be old to be wise. But I've studied the old world ways and I've been to the countries of my forefathers. And so I believe you don't have to be old to be wise. I mean, I have some gray hairs from being an entrepreneur. It's enough. I could tell you, but I just want to show that. I think just as I was inspired and by seeing my father as an entrepreneur, I believe just if elected, I can get in and try to give some hope for young people.
Yep.
To do more, be more, think more.
Yep.
To maybe get into real estate or, you know, maybe run for office. I just love that I'm in a position right now where I can be a trailblazer.
Yep. Absolutely. And we thank you for that. Well, we are going to wrap up here. I just wanted to say thank you again for coming. And I'm going to leave everything below for Adrian. Feel free to share, like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.